It's not very often that I watch something that I relate to. Happens occasionally, but we just finished watching Jim and Andy. And I do plan on doing a review of it with Yvonne. So for anybody who's like, oh, he's doing a review of it by himself. There's a, there's a relate to this movie that I have with Jim Carrey. And to a much lesser extent, Andy Kaufman. Andy Kaufman, of course, a famous comedian, passes on. The story, the movie Man on the Moon was made about his life. Jim Carrey plays Andy Kaufman, and in the making of the movie, he became Andy Kaufman. He stayed in the part even when the camera wasn't rolling, and he had his own crew following him around, documenting what he did backstage. And it's footage that stayed locked away for 20 years and has come out now in this new documentary on Netflix. There are parts of this I identify with. So over the last year and a half, I built up a channel, and it's not on this one, it's the other one. I've got 25,000 subscribers. And at the beginning, it was just me ranting at a camera. Nobody was listening. After my ex-wife left, I didn't really have anybody to talk to as an adult. I had my son there, but there were obviously topics that you can't talk about with your kid. I remembered my dad and I having cringeworthy conversations after him and my mother split up, and I didn't want to put my son through that. So I got a webcam and I just talked to it. And in the midst of talking to said webcam, this idea that I should just talk about hockey came out. And to a lesser extent than either Jim Carrey or Andy Kaufman, the hockey guy that was born in that is not, it's me, but it's definitely a role too. I had to clean up my language because YouTube wants to be family friendly, and that's fine. When it's a company that's giving you money to behave a certain way, I don't have a problem with it. There's a lot of YouTubers that cry censorship and, oh, this is awful. Hey, it's their platform. They're letting you make money on it. If you have to play by certain rules to make money off of their platform, play by said rules, make your own platform, or go away. And that's my honest opinion. And so, I mean, if their rules changed, then yeah, I would have to adapt with that. But there are parts of what I do that sometimes it drives me nuts. And I can identify, Andy Kaufman created this character, Tony Clifton, with the idea that he could say and do horrible things under the guise of Tony Clifton, and that his best friend did it too, because it wasn't always him. There were times where you'd see Andy and then you'd see Tony Clifton, just to maintain that error of, wait, it's Andy, isn't it? Wait, but if it's Andy, then how is this guy here? And I can identify with that to some extent. That idea that pressure builds and builds and builds, and you just snap. I've had days over the last couple of months where I get up and I'm like, I don't want to talk about hockey today. I don't want to watch hockey today. I want to do something else. But I sit down and I do it. And, people tell me, well, you should take days off. That's not how sports works. I can't call up a hockey team and say, guys, don't play tonight because I don't feel like watching. On any given night, I have to watch as much as I can. It's a labor of love, because I still get, between June and September, there's no hockey to watch. So during those months, I have downtime and I can talk about whatever I want. It still has to be related to hockey, but I can get into the old stuff and some of the really interesting storylines that have occurred over the last 35 years. But I can identify with that idea of, man, it would be nice to just sometimes just say whatever. Just do whatever. But there is a pressure when you're a public figure. And I say that as somebody with, 25,000 subscribers is nothing in terms of a YouTube following. That is 2% of what you need in order for somebody to say, hey, you've got a really big channel. It is 25% of what you need to be qualified as a middling channel on YouTube. And it's a lot of pressure I put on myself, in that in September I made the decision with that channel to stop working a full-time job outside the house, take on a part-time job outside the house, and make videos and YouTube the full-time job. And the pressure you feel from that is real. And it's funny because I used to watch things like this, and I used to hear celebrities talk, and I'd be like, oh, you poor things. I can kind of almost get it, in that, there are times where I'm out in public and people may recognize me and they might say something, might not. It's more awkward when they don't. It's more awkward when I'm walking by and somebody taps me on the shoulder and points at me, and it's like, come on, that's weird. So I can identify with how Jim Carrey in this documentary talks about the idea that you're painted into a corner. You are supposed to be a certain person, and there's a day where you break free of who they want you to be and of what you're supposed to be, and you're just yourself and you just don't care. And I'm not at that point yet, but I can totally understand why he got to that point. It's easy for him in that he has a lot of money to do that. Jim Carrey is in a very good position financially, and that frees him up completely from having to worry about making more movies, more TV shows, or anything. He can just be Jim Carrey. I'm not in a position where I can just be Shannon. I have to be the hockey guy. And there is, I'll put it this way, when I do videos in this house, everybody can tell I'm doing a video by the way I'm speaking, the words I'm using, and just the persona that I use. And I'm doing it now. Absolutely doing it now. And when the camera's off, I'm goofier, I'm more relaxed, and in some situations I can curse like a sailor. It depends on a lot of factors. Who I'm hanging around with. At my old workplace, for instance, it was quite common. And it can be a matter of, am I angry? Am I frustrated? What's going on? And certainly in older videos on my other channel, and I'm talking about before I became the hockey guy, cursing and swearing was quite common. It was part of what I did, because I was really completely myself in that. And it's funny too, because over the years I've made some bad decisions in life, and I got very good at playing characters at work. I played a character in my other marriage, the first time I was common law married, and I learned to be one way at home and one way at work. And I sometimes, there's different parts of my personality. I had Church Shannon, and I would use Church Shannon if I was at church or if I was at my grandmother's. So Church Shannon doesn't swear, he doesn't talk out of line, very respectful. And then, I would have the high school Shannon, where cursing and swearing was regular, sometimes throwing taunts at people was regular. Completely different personality, same person. And, with the channel, there are some people who look at the channel and go, well, that's not Shannon. True, to some extent. The one thing that I do see through my experiences with YouTube and through having a webcam and doing what I do, it's really freed me up to be more myself when the camera's not on than ever at any point in the rest of my life. I'm more rested than I've been in 25 years. I feel terrified and excited at the same time about the future. And, when I hear Jim Carrey had written himself a check for $10 million with the idea that he was going to be rich, I don't set goals like that. But I do have goals that I set for myself every year. 2018, my goal is to lose weight and get myself into better shape than I am. And I don't consider myself a blimp or anything, but I want to intercede before that becomes a thing. And there's a certain financial number I want to reach this year that would allow myself and my family to be hopefully comfortable. It would be really nice to be able to save money for kids to go to college should they choose to. It would be really nice to be able to afford a big house. This said, I'm always in the jerseys. I don't know if people who on the hockey channel noticed lately, I'm always in the jerseys. I use this board that's on the wall. I don't use my other boards. I try to save space, and yet I don't really have any, and there's nowhere else to move them to. Having a place, and I mean it's just, it's funny because I watched this Jim Carrey documentary, the Jim and Andy, and all I think is, man, the feeling that Jim has right now in his life, that's what I want. That's what I want. That reconciling everything about yourself and recognizing the good and the ugly and everything, and just being okay with it on some level. And as well, it kind of touches on the fact too, I'm trying not to do a review because I plan on doing that with Yvonne later. It kind of touches on the fact that comedians are often very sad people. Comedians see the world from a different perspective. And I've always patterned myself kind of as a guy who has a good sense of humor, and part of it is because I'm terrified. I watch the news, I'm terrified. I see things that are going on in this world, I'm terrified. And sometimes when you feel that way, the only way to really rationalize and deal with it and move along in life is humor. So a comedian will find a way of looking at something really, really dark and make this joke out of it so that everybody can kind of have a laugh and relax. But then when the laughs are done and you're not on stage, you're still thinking about it. You still have that in your brain. And for me, that's there. I know after the election, and I had a video about that on this channel, I had a dream within the first week that there was a nuclear war, that I could see on my television Donald Trump saying this is what we have to do, and I could see missiles flying up. I could see the smoke trails and the flame from their fuel as they flew overhead going towards Russia, and Trump saying this is just what we have to do, and that the idea was that because he wasn't respected, he took it to the ultimate, that this will win me respect. And I woke up it just terrified. Now, as a comedian, you take that and you make a joke out of it. As a YouTube personality, you can take that and if you have a channel that way, you can talk about it. But for me personally, I can't. Because it's not my realm. It's not where I am. And because YouTube is a very public forum, and because people take it like they almost own me, and the other YouTube personalities have talked about that, and I can see it where, because I'm broadcasting from my own home, and this is a very personal setting, and I'm talking to you like if we're good friends, they kind of feel like, okay, we're friends now, so I want to come over to your house and hang out with you. Hey, you want to go here? And it's like, no. But there is no line there like you have with somebody on television or somebody in a movie. That line doesn't exist with YouTube personalities. So it's this weird, murky area that the world's got itself into. I can't imagine how Andy Kaufman would have worked with today's internet celebrity being what it is. He could have done wonders with a YouTube channel. He would have had millions of followers, and nobody would have had any idea what he was doing. Nobody would have had any idea. I don't think he would have been monetized either. I think he would have gone out of his way in this day and age to offend everybody. So for me, I feel like I'm kind of literally in a corner. But the character that I'm playing, I can at least say, doesn't drive me nuts. And it's fun. Unlike Lotka, which for Andy Kaufman became a burden. The Lotka character, you could tell, even when he was alive, you could tell it was a burden to him. That he would not do the voice. He would not be that character. He was tired of that. Patterned himself as an entertainer, not as a joke. So he would not do that character. And for me, if I'm out in public and somebody walks up to me and starts talking hockey, I will turn right into exactly the guy that you see in videos on YouTube. So today, watching that and listening to Jim Carrey talk and watching the Andy Kaufman footage, I'm like, man, I get it. I get it. Because all of this, and the ridiculous degree to which I have created this jersey collection, and I'm still welcoming new jerseys, because if you don't evolve, you die. And I consider that part of the evolution. Even, jerseys I never intended to buy, having them, just so that I can say, all right, I have this. I have teams that I don't necessarily cheer for, but I have all their shirts, and I have a way of marketing myself as the hockey guy. It's there are days it's kind of taxing. I did between the Hockey Guy channel and this channel, I did, I think, 14 videos in 2 days. And then I went on that second night, and I saw people like, you didn't do a video on this, you didn't do a video on this, why didn't you do a video on this? And it was so hard for me not to just go off. Because I'd had no downtime in 2 days. I'd done 14 different videos on 2 different channels. And I still had people saying, but you didn't talk about this. Holy crap. I'm one person. And there are times where, Tony Clifton wants to come out. There are times where I want to create a Tony Clifton account on YouTube, give him moderating rights on my channel, and kind of go Tony Clifton on people. But it won't happen. Because it's not really a part of who I am. I've played different characters over the years. I've played different characters online over the years. When I ran a wrestling website, I was a different guy then. I treated it almost like you're often people. You're writing their wrestling characters the way you see fit, and if they kind of give you the finger and say they're quitting the company, well, then you got to take the wrestler out in the next show. And that wasn't fun either, because there's always 20, 30, 40 people looking to replace you. And that's where I can kind of understand the entertainment industry as well, is that on YouTube, there's always 20 or 30 people looking to replace me. There's always a bunch of guys like, well, I can do it better than he does. So I have to have the big jersey collection. I have to make sure I have all these, like yesterday. Yvonne says, well, I've found 6 old hockey news magazines from the 70s. A guy selling them locally for $10. I said, get them. And I have them, and I'm like, all right, get them. I will get every single item hockey related. I will scour the earth for items that I know nobody else has, so that I can provide videos nobody else can. Especially when a lot of the people who are trying to mimic and recreate what I've done with my other channel, I know they're a lot younger than I am. They don't have my memories. So I can call upon those at any given point in time to do an in-depth video that I know other people can't do. And yet there are days I just want to be Shannon and just go out and do stuff. But when if you sit down and you do your videos and you behave yourself and you spend those hours during a day watching hockey games, talking about hockey, that you won't have to worry about putting food on the table for your family, that's a good feeling too. So there you go. My personal feelings on the Jim and Andy documentary, and the review will definitely happen as well, because Yvonne will, of course, give a totally different perspective. And I will discuss it as a documentary, not bringing it about to myself. Hopefully by doing this, I won't turn it back on me and, oh, this is about me. Thank you very much for watching, if you've made it this far. And hey, so hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. And if you haven't seen this, and this is kind of a reviewish, yeah, it's worth watching. It's the most in-depth I've ever seen with Jim Carrey. But I'll get into that when we do the review. Between now and then, thanks for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.